At my sister's baby shower, my mother smiled, dropped the keys to my house into my sister's hand in front of nearly 30 guests, and said, "Madison is about to become a mother. She needs a real home. Claire has always known how to take care of herself." Everyone clapped. I stood there, frozen beside a table covered in pink and gold cupcakes, watching my sister cradle her fake tears and lift my keys like she'd just been handed a blessing from heaven. Then my mother turned to me, still smiling, her voice sweet and poisonous at the same time. "Smile, Claire. Don't ruin the pictures." So I smiled. Not because I was weak. Because in that exact moment I understood something very clearly. They weren't just trying to steal my house. They wanted to steal it in front of witnesses, make me look selfish, and force me to help legitimize the whole thing. And I've worked long enough in fraud prevention to know one thing. The most confident liars are usually the ones who leave the best evidence. My name is Claire. I'm 32, and I work in mortgage title fraud review in Chicago. My job is simple. I spend all day watching people lie on paper, then finding the exact place where they destroy themselves with their own signatures. My family works differently. They've spent their whole lives calling greed love. My sister Madison has always been the golden child. She's the one who gets rescued, excused, and protected. She crashed her car sophomore year of college, and my parents liquidated part of my savings to clean it up. She launched an online boutique that failed in 8 months, and my mother took money from me to help her get back on her feet. Then she married Brent, a man with whiter teeth than morals, and from that point on, every disaster the two of them created became a family emergency. And me, I was the one who worked, the one who paid, the one who got called strong every time they needed something from me. The townhouse they tried to hand over to Madison was mine. I bought it myself at 29. My down payment came from my income, my reserves, and years of saying no to everything fun. The mortgage was mine. The title was mine. Every floorboard in that house had been paid for by hours of my life. That matters, because when a revenge story isn't clear about ownership, people start making excuses for the thieves. There was no trust, no inheritance, no family understanding, no hidden promise that the house would someday belong to Madison. It was my house. Legally, financially, morally mine. The baby shower that day was being held inside it, without my permission. 3 days earlier, my mother called and said she wanted to borrow the backyard for a small shower, just close family. I was in Milwaukee dealing with a title fraud file, and I didn't want to fight, so I told the doorman to let them in at 11 and made it very clear they were only to use the first floor and the patio. When I drove back that afternoon, my whole home had been turned into their stage set. Balloons, floral walls, gift towers in my living room. My refrigerator was packed with alcohol-free champagne for Madison and real Prosecco for everyone else. My silk bedding had been replaced with soft cream sheets for the nursery aesthetic, and the cashmere robe my grandmother Evelyn gave me was hanging off my mother's shoulders like it belonged to her. I'd already seen enough. But the real slap came when Madison raised her sparkling apple juice, smiled at the room, and said, "Thank you, Mom and Dad, for helping us start our new life here. This baby is going to grow up in the most beautiful house Aunt Claire was kind enough to hold for me." Hold for me. She said it lightly, like dust. But inside my head, everything went silent. I looked at my father. He didn't blink. I looked at Brent. He was filming Instagram stories. I looked at my mother. She gave me a tiny nod like she was issuing an order. "You can sign everything tonight," she said quietly. "Don't stress your sister out. She's pregnant." That was the moment I stopped looking at them like family. I started looking at them like a case file. I didn't yell. I didn't snatch the keys out of Madison's hand. I didn't call the police in the middle of the party. I just smiled and said, "Fine. But if you want this done fast, we need to go to the bank tomorrow. The property's inside a liability holding structure right now, and if anything gets transferred the wrong way, it could trigger gift tax and underwriting issues." My father's face tightened immediately. "Holding structure I'll explain tomorrow," I said. "For now, let Madison enjoy her shower." The biggest weakness greedy people have is this: the second they hear the word fast, they stop asking smart questions. That night after everyone left, I didn't sleep in the house. I sat in my car on the street with my laptop open and started doing what I do best. First, I downloaded footage from the front door camera, the kitchen camera, and the garage camera. In one clip, my mother told the man delivering a crib, "Put it in the master bedroom. Claire won't need that room anymore." Second, I pulled the county property record summary and the internal ownership documents from my encrypted folder. Everything was exactly what it had always been: my purchase, my funds, my entity, my title chain. Third, I drove to my grandmother Evelyn's old safe deposit box. After she died, her attorney gave me the key with one warning: your grandmother knew your parents would eventually come after whatever you built. Inside were only two things that mattered: a handwritten letter and a USB drive. When I opened the video, Grandma Evelyn looked straight into the camera and said, "Claire, if you're watching this, it means they finally did what I always knew they would do. They would call greed duty and theft love. Don't fight them emotionally. Let them put their lies in writing." That was all I needed. Not ownership documents, not inheritance proof, just confirmation from the only adult in my family who had ever seen them clearly. I played the video 3 times. Then, I made 2 calls. The first was to my attorney, Nora Bell. The second was to the vice president of risk at the very bank my parents wanted to use for the transfer. The next morning, my mother texted me at 8:12. Dress properly. Don't embarrass your sister at the bank. I replied, I'll be there. At 9:30, we were all seated in a glass conference room on the 18th floor overlooking the Chicago River. Madison wore a pale blue maternity dress. Brent held her hand like they were posing for engagement photos. My father sat upright like a man expecting to win. My mother wore the smug expression of someone who thought she'd already closed the deal. Nora sat beside me. There was a thin stack of papers on the table. My father spoke first. We want Claire to transfer the townhouse to Madison as a family gift, as quickly as possible. Nora nodded calmly. That may be possible, but because the property has an established funding trail and title history, and because the recipient may refinance after the birth, the bank requires sworn source of funds declarations and ownership statements before any proposed transfer can even be reviewed. Madison frowned, meaning what I answered in the calmest voice I had. It means that if Mom and Dad truly believe they were the original source of the down payment and I was only holding the property temporarily, then this is easy. All they have to do is sign an affidavit stating the funds were theirs, that I held the property on their behalf, and that it's now being returned to the intended beneficiary, Madison. My mother blinked, and I saw it happen right there. Greed short-circuited the rest of her brain. Yes, she said quickly. That's exactly what happened. Nora slid the document across the table. Then please sign the source of funds affidavit. It will be video recorded, and a court reporter is present. Standard procedure. My father reached for the pen immediately. Does Claire sign first? No, Nora said. The source history has to be established first. I sat still. Across from me, Madison rested a hand on her stomach and smirked. She thought I had folded. She didn't understand that people who are truly surrendering don't ask for cameras. My father signed first. My mother signed second. Then on video, both of them confirmed that the townhouse down payment had come from their savings, and that I had only held title temporarily, because it was more practical at the time. Nora asked one more question very gently. And you both confirm that this statement does not conflict with any prior sworn financial filing or federal disclosure. My father looked irritated. Of course not. That was when Nora opened her briefcase and pulled out a gray case folder. I saw the color drain from my father's face before he even finished turning the first page. Chapter 7, Bankruptcy. Filed 6 months earlier. Schedule of assets, 0 liquid savings, 0 reserve funds, 0 beneficial real estate interest outside primary residence. The room went dead silent. My mother understood first. She turned toward my father, lips going white. Nora kept speaking in the same, even surgical tone. A few moments ago, both of you swore on camera that you had substantial cash savings available for the original acquisition of this property and that Claire merely held title on your behalf. That statement now sits in direct tension with your federal bankruptcy filing signed under penalty of perjury. Madison started blinking fast. No, wait, this doesn't have anything to do with me. It does, I said, finally looking directly at her. Because you're sitting here waiting to receive a house built on a lie. Brent shoved his chair back and stood up. This is a setup. Nora turned toward him. Not yet, she said. The setup is the next part. Then she placed my grandmother's USB drive on the table and nodded toward the wall monitor. The screen lit up. My grandmother Evelyn appeared. In the video, she looked calm, sharp, entirely unsurprised by human failure. Claire, she said, if they've reached the point where they're trying to take your home, don't waste time trying to be understood. People like that don't want truth. They want access. Let them write down exactly who they are. When the screen went dark, Nora placed another packet on the table. Exhibit C, security footage from last night, in which Mrs. Holloway states, quote, Claire won't need the master bedroom anymore. Exhibit D, text messages pressuring Claire to transfer the property because Madison deserves it more because she's pregnant. Exhibit E, nursery furniture delivery receipts tied to a home none of you had any lawful right to occupy beyond temporary event access. My mother started crying. Not the cry of someone who'd been hurt. The cry of someone caught in the act who still wanted to be treated like the victim. She turned everyone against us, my mother snapped. Nora didn't even blink. No, she said. You documented yourselves. My father lurched forward and tried to grab the file. At that exact moment, the conference room door opened. 2 bank security officers stepped inside, along with an investigator from Financial Risk Compliance. The man in the gray suit rested a hand on the back of my father's chair. Sir, I'm going to need you to sit down. Madison panicked for real then. We're family, she blurted. This is a family matter. I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt completely calm. No, I said. Family doesn't secretly move into someone else's house, set up a nursery in the master bedroom, and sign a false affidavit on camera. That's fraud. Brent tried to pull Madison up, but she was shaking too hard to move. She wasn't the golden child in that room anymore. She was just a woman who had spent her whole life being rescued, and had finally stepped into a room where nobody intended to save her. Then my father turned to me. The anger was gone from his face. What was left looked almost like disbelief. How could you do this to your family? I answered quietly enough that the room had to go still to hear me. Because for the first time, I stopped letting my family do it to me. That afternoon, Madison and Brent were removed from my house. Not as tenants, not as legal residents, not as family guests with continuing rights. They had entered under limited event permission and then attempted to convert that access into possession. Once the bank incident was documented, and my attorney sent formal notice, any argument that this was a misunderstanding died immediately. The doorman changed every access code. The locks were reset. My mother called me 27 times. My father left 6 voicemails, 4 of which began with, "You're overreacting." I didn't listen to any of them all the way through. 3 weeks later, my parents' bankruptcy attorney requested a settlement conference. They wanted to keep their freshly recorded affidavit from turning into something much worse. In exchange, they signed a formal no-contact agreement, reimbursed all legal fees, and acknowledged in writing that the townhouse had never belonged to them and was never being held in trust for Madison. Madison never moved in. The nursery furniture was returned. Brent disappeared after 2 months. And my mother, the same woman who had told me to smile so I wouldn't ruin the photos, had to sell her new SUV to cover part of the legal damage. As for me, the first thing I did after I got my house fully back wasn't open champagne. I changed every sheet in the bedroom. I threw away the yellow baby shower ribbon still tied to the front doorknob. Then I carried my grandmother's small wooden box up to the rooftop terrace. Inside was one last note. Never argue with people who see you as property. Let them misprice you. I stood there a long time, with the city spread out below me, the wind off the river sharp against my face, and finally understood something I should have learned years ago. All my life, I thought winning would mean the day my family finally understood me. It didn't. Winning was the day they lost the right to define me. And yes, the baby shower photo did eventually get posted in the family group chat. In it, Madison is holding the keys to my house. My mother is grinning. My father is standing beside her like a king, handing land to the chosen heir. And at the far edge of the frame, I'm smiling too. Because I was the only person in that photo who knew the truth. By the time that picture was taken, it wasn't a party anymore. It was already a crime scene.